The wind howled across the frozen Arctic plains. Dr. Emily Carter pulled her coat tighter around her body as she stepped off the helicopter. The ice stretched as far as she could see, a vast white world untouched for thousands of years. "Dr. Carter, over here," called Dr. Raj Patel, her colleague. His voice was almost lost in the wind. Emily hurried toward him, her boots crunching in the thick snow. A team of scientists stood around a deep hole in the ice. Inside, something huge was buried. Its curved tusks stretched out like frozen tree branches, and its thick brown fur was still visible under layers of ice. "A woolly mammoth," Emily whispered, her breath forming small clouds in the freezing air. "And it's almost perfectly preserved." Dr. Patel nodded. "This could be the best specimen we've ever found. Look at the skin, the fur. Even the muscles seem intact." The team worked carefully, using special tools to remove the ice around the mammoth's body. As they worked, excitement grew. "This is incredible," said Lucas, a young researcher. "If we can extract its DNA, we might be able to bring it back to life." Emily's eyes shone with curiosity. "We need to take it back to the lab. If the DNA is still good, we could try cloning it." The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. Bringing a species back from extinction. Was it possible? And more importantly, was it the right thing to do? As the sun set over the Arctic, the scientists carefully transported the mammoth onto a special aircraft. The journey back to the lab had begun, and with it, the greatest experiment in history. Back at the high-tech research lab, the woolly mammoth's frozen body lay inside a massive glass chamber. Bright lights shone down as scientists in white lab coats moved carefully around it, their eyes filled with both excitement and nervousness. Dr. Emily Carter took a deep breath and looked at her team. "This is it," she said. "We're about to do something no one has ever done before." Using the most advanced technology, the scientists extracted DNA from the mammoth cells. Every step was delicate. One small mistake, and the entire experiment could fail. "We have to be careful, Doctor," Raj Patel said, adjusting his microscope. "This DNA is over 10,000 years old. If it's too damaged, we won't be able to use it." Hours turned into days, and days into weeks. Finally, after countless tests, the team succeeded. They had created a perfect copy of the mammoth's DNA. Now they faced the next challenge, bringing it to life. "We'll use an elephant as the surrogate mother," Emily explained to the team. "Elephants are the closest living relatives of mammoths. If everything goes right, she'll carry the baby for almost 2 years." The process was delicate. The fertilized egg was placed inside the elephant mother, a gentle giant named Maya. The team monitored her closely, watching for any signs of rejection. Days passed, then weeks, then months. "She's still healthy," Raj said one evening. "The embryo is growing." Hope filled the room. Every ultrasound showed the tiny creature developing inside Maya. The team watched in awe as the outline of small tusks and a furry body began to take shape. Then, after 22 long months, the day finally arrived. The entire team gathered around as Maya lay on her side, breathing heavily. Veterinarians stood by, ready to assist. Minutes felt like hours. Then, at last, a small wet body emerged. Gasps filled the room. A baby woolly mammoth lay on the ground, its tiny trunk wiggling. Its thick fur was damp, but unmistakable. It let out a soft cry, a sound no human had heard for thousands of years. Emily wiped a tear from her eye. "We did it," she whispered. The world's first woolly mammoth in over 10,000 years had just been born. Manny grew faster than anyone had expected. Within months, he was as big as a full-grown cow. His thick brown fur became fluffier, and his small tusks started to curve outward. He was playful, curious, and full of energy, always eager to explore his surroundings. Dr. Emily Carter loved watching him. "He's just like a baby elephant," she often said, smiling as Manny splashed around in the water or chased butterflies in the artificial habitat built for him. But Manny was also strong, much stronger than any elephant his age. The scientists had reinforced his enclosure, but he was already testing its limits. One evening, dark clouds gathered over the facility. The wind howled through the trees, and rain began to pour heavily. Inside the lab, warning alarms blared. "Power failure," a technician shouted. "The storm is damaging the electrical system." Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by a loud boom. A giant tree crashed down, smashing part of the enclosure's fence. The sudden noise startled Manny. His ears flapped, and he trumpeted loudly in fear. Then he ran. The rain poured over his thick fur as he pushed through the broken fence and disappeared into the darkness. By the time the scientists arrived, he was gone. "He's out there," Raj said breathlessly. "Alone." Emily's heart pounded. Manny had never been in the real wilderness before. He had never faced freezing cold wild animals or the dangers of the outside world. "We have to find him," she said, "before it's too late." The search began at dawn. The storm had passed, but the damage it left behind was clear. Broken fences, fallen trees, and deep footprints leading into the wilderness. Dr. Emily Carter adjusted her backpack and pulled up her hood. "We need to move fast," she said. "Manny is not ready for the wild." Dr. Raj Patel nodded. "If he wanders too far, he could freeze to death. Or worse, he could encounter predators." The team followed Manny's tracks into the dense forest. The ground was slippery, and cold wind bit at their faces. Drones flew overhead, scanning for any sign of the young mammoth. After hours of hiking, the footprints led to a fast-moving river. The ice-cold water rushed over sharp rocks. Emily's heart sank. "Did he cross?" Lucas, the young researcher, asked. Before anyone could answer, they heard a deep, distant cry. "That's Manny!" Emily shouted. They ran toward the sound, climbing over fallen logs and pushing through thick branches. Then they saw him. Manny was trapped on a rocky ledge, shivering and covered in snow. His big brown eyes were wide with fear. Below him, the river roared. One wrong step, and he could fall. "We have to help him," Raj said. Emily carefully stepped onto the ledge. "It's okay, Manny," she said softly. "We're here." But Manny was scared. He backed away, his hooves slipping on the icy rock. "Don't move too fast," Lucas whispered. "We need to make him feel safe." Emily took a deep breath. Then she pulled something from her pocket. An apple. Manny's ears perked up. He knew that smell. Slowly, Emily extended her hand. "Come on, buddy. You remember me, don't you?" Manny hesitated, then took a small step forward. Then another. Finally, he was close enough. Emily gently touched his thick fur and whispered, "You're safe now." With the team's help, they guided Manny back down the hill. He was tired, hungry, and cold, but alive. As they started their journey home, Emily looked back at the wild, snowy landscape. Manny had seen the real world. And now the hardest decision was yet to come. Should he stay in captivity, or should they set him free? The journey back to the research facility was long and difficult. Manny was exhausted, and the freezing wind made every step harder. The team took turns guiding him, using soft voices and offering small treats to keep him moving. Dr. Emily Carter walked beside him, her hand resting gently on his thick fur. "You gave us quite a scare, buddy," she said with a tired smile. "But you're safe now." By the time they reached the facility, the sky was painted with hues of pink and gold. Manny let out a low rumbling sound, a mix of relief and exhaustion. The other scientists rushed to help, wrapping him in warm blankets and checking his condition. "He's dehydrated and cold, but he'll be okay," Dr. Raj Patel said. "He's a strong one." Over the next few days, Manny slowly regained his strength. He played with his favorite toys, splashed in the water, and nuzzled against Emily whenever she visited. But something had changed. He often stood by the reinforced fence, looking out into the distance. He had tasted freedom, and now the walls of the facility felt smaller than before. Emily and Raj sat together one evening, watching Manny under the pale glow of the moon. "He doesn't belong here, does he?" Emily asked softly. Raj sighed. "We brought him back to life, but we didn't bring back his world. He's the last of his kind." For days, the team debated what to do. Could they keep him safe in captivity, where he would never be truly free? Or should they release him into a protected Arctic reserve, where he would face the challenges of the wild, but live as nature intended? Finally, the decision was made. 1 month later, Manny stood at the edge of a vast snowy plain. His fur ruffled in the cold breeze. Ahead of him stretched miles of untouched wilderness, a land much like the one his ancestors had roamed thousands of years ago. Emily knelt beside him. "You're ready, aren't you?" she whispered. Manny turned his big brown eyes toward her, as if he understood. He let out a deep, low rumble, the same sound he made when he was happy. Then, with one last look back, he stepped forward. The scientists watched in silence as Manny disappeared into the wild, his massive form blending with the snow-covered hills. Emily felt a tear roll down her cheek. "Goodbye, Manny," she whispered. "Live well." Raj placed a hand on her shoulder. "We did something incredible," he said, "but maybe the real success isn't just bringing him back. It's knowing when to let go." As the wind carried Manny's footprints into the distance, the team stood together, realizing they had done more than revive a species. They had learned to respect the past, protect the present, and honor the balance of nature.